everyone, this is another episode of Gold as Girls. My name is Carla from Walsum and my special guest for today is Zack Muller, Wiesel. Zack, who are you? How do we know each other?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
I'm a huge fan of Golden Girls, and the way we met was so special. So we live in the same building.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with the woman at the front desk about Israel and Palestine. And during that time, Carla walked by, and we both kind of felt this energy. And I forgot exactly what you said to me.
Well, I said, hi guys. And I passed by and it was a silence, and that felt weird, that energy. So I turned around. I saw you doing something with here. And then I was like, I saw the necklace, the magenta feet. And then later on, I understood that the weird energy was because she said to you, she's also Jewish.
Yes.
So that was the weirdness. And then we started to talk for hours.
Mm-hmm. And that was later on that you told me you were Jewish. At first, I didn't know if you were pro-Palestine, pro-Israel, but then I saw your magenta and we started speaking. And like you said, we had a wonderful conversation where we spoke for hours, sharing knowledge. And you invited me to your house for Shabbat dinner. And
that was nice.
Most people don't know this, but Carla is an incredible chef. Incredible. And I got to meet your wonderful family, your kids, and it was really a beautiful experience. I'm really grateful that we met.
We do it again. Yeah.
And we'll do it again. And just a little bit of history about me.
Yeah,
so,
please.
I'm related to Eli Wiesel, for one, which is why.
Your parents or your grandparents changed the name for safety. To be less Jewish, right?
Yes, so we changed our name from Wiesel to Muller to escape anti-Semitism and communism in Romania.
Yeah.
So my family left everything behind. My grandma was a medical doctor. My grandfather was an engineer. They were very successful in Romania, very established, and they had to just leave everything behind and start with nothing, which is a very common story for Jewish people. I then found out that I'm also related to the Baal Shem Tov, which is something I found out more recently. And that's part of what's inspired me to become more involved with supporting Israel and the Jewish people. A little bit about me, my background. So I grew up going to Jewish day schools.
In Miami Beach?
In Miami Beach. I've always been a martial artist, a wrestler, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Always wanted to kind of defend people who are getting bullied. Yeah, so martial arts was a huge part of my life. I did tournaments, and that's kind of where I think I obtained my warrior spirit. I went to Jewish day schools throughout my entire life. In second grade, I attended an Orthodox school called the Hebrew Academy. Mm-hmm. And I never really felt so connected to Judaism or Israel. For various reasons, it was just not something that I took an interest in. And
you happen to be Jewish, and that's it.
I happen to be Jewish, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then I graduated high school. I went to college. I continued to be disconnected from Judaism, and actually, at a point in time, I had an Israeli business partner, and we're having some problems, regular problems, normal business problems. And I also had a Palestinian vendor, and the Palestinian would talk to me about the plight of his people and all the supposed horrible things that Israel is doing. And I really empathized with him because I was ignorant about the topic. And
that's such an honest observation.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are ignorant think they know, and you say I was ignorant and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's so important to be introspective. And when October 7th happened, it kind of woke me up. And I said to myself, I really have an obligation to understand this topic. And get to the bottom of it. I have experience as a senior analyst for a patented AI company where we would observe thousands of tweets around a specific stock per second, generate sentiment scores, and sell that data to NASDAQ, JP Morgan, BlackRock, etc. So I'm really good at analyzing data and presenting it in a way that's easy to digest. More reason for me to embark on this journey of research.
Regarding Israel.
Regarding the Israel and Palestine conflict. So I approached my research with a few focus points. One was, who started it? That's very important to me because a lot of people say this didn't start on October 7th. They say it started in 1948, but that's not true.
It's not true either.
That's not true either. So I went all the way back, all the way to the Arab conquest of the 7th century, when Jews were exiled and removed from their land. But a lot of people say that's too far back. So let's fast forward a little bit to the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
For example, during the Ottoman Empire, Jews were called dhimmi. They were treated like second-class citizens.
As they were actually in most Arabic countries, right?
Yes.
Because Muslims, as Islam started in, is it 680 or 613, 18 something, in the 7th century. That's when Islam started. But before and after, the dhimmi was already a fact for being a second-class citizen for Jews.
Yeah. They had to pay taxes. They weren't allowed to build their synagogues, and Christians as well, yes. Yeah. They weren't allowed to build their synagogues taller than a mosque, etc. And during the Ottoman Empire, there were several massacres against Jews, which went unanswered because Jews were a minority and they were defenseless.
Yeah.
And I always ask myself, this is about Zionism and this is about land. Why were they massacring Jews and treating them like second-class citizens before the Zionist movement?
Yeah.
And to me, that was very telling. And you can fast forward even past the Ottoman Empire to, for example, the 1929 Hebron massacre. And this massacre stands out because they targeted a native Jewish area and native Jews who were not so-called settlers.
They always lived there, indeed, and there are the holy places of graves of people that lived in the Bible. I mean, it's so connected to Jewish history. That's why they lived there.
So much archaeological evidence.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's why they kept there, because it's a place they pray and all that, and yeah.
It's all there. But why did they target, if this is about settlements, why did they target native Jews? So-called settlers were also killed, but it was in Hebron. So to me, that was very telling as well. And then you fast forward to 1948. And before I do that, I think it's important to mention that there were no reports of Jewish violence against Arabs until the 1900s. Some of these independent militias started to form in response to the riots and these massacres that were happening. So in 1948, the Jews accepted the partition plan, the two-state solution. Arabs rejected it. Instead, Arabs tried to destroy Israel and wipe out all the people. Israel defended themselves, and like any war, the Arabs lost land.
It's when you start a war, there's a risk that you can lose, and that you lose land, and that's what you need to take.
Absolutely.
If you cannot take your loss, then don't start a war.
Exactly.
Very simple.
Exactly. So looking at all this information, it became very clear to me who started it. And that was important. And then the next thing that I wanted to try to understand was the justification for some of these buzzwords, like genocide.
Yeah.
Which is so infuriating, right? And I wanted to, first of all, understand the definition, and intent is so important when you're talking about genocide. And Israel has the ability to wipe out Gaza in one day. They have the military capabilities, they have nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, they have everything available to do that.
If they wanted to commit a genocide, they would. Now, the Palestinian population has increased by over 300% since 1948. Since October 7, according to Palestinian sources, which are highly disputed, the population has only decreased by 6%.
Yeah.
When you compare this to actual genocides, like the Holocaust or the Armenian genocide, there was a 60% population decrease.
Yeah.
Palestinians have had over 300% increase since 1948.
Yeah.
And according to Palestinian sources, only a 6% decrease since October 7. That does not line up with actual genocides.
No.
And in the Syrian civil war, 25% of the population was depleted. Yeah. And that's considered to be a war.
And look at what happened in Yemen. Look what happens in Ghana. Nobody is protesting about that, at least not. Totally not. So it has more something to do with Jews. And
it's selective outrage. And
totally.
it's so obvious, it's so clear. I was watching a debate where the pro-Palestinian person kept focusing on is that there's certain areas where only Jews can buy land. They were arguing about equal rights. And I see this guy obsessing about private landowners choosing who to sell their land to, But he's not upset about 9-year-old girls being forced to marry 60-year-old men.
No, but there is a law in I think the law is like hadith, and in Islam, that when a Muslim gets a piece of land, whether he conquers it, takes it by force, or buys it, he should never give it back. So this is the problem already. If you believe that, they do not want to give it back. So the land in exchange for peace is almost a joke to expect that. That is why the Israelis in the 90s wanted to negotiate with Arafat, because they thought that Arafat was secular, was not so strong in Muslim religious way of living.
Right, more moderate, they thought.
Yeah, or indeed more secular. But he walked away in the Oslo, when they had the Oslo peace negotiations. He got 96% offered of Judea and Samaria, but actually we call the West Bank, right? And the rest of the 4% of the land they could choose from somewhere else. He walked away. President Bill Clinton was involved with that. He's getting emotional now. When he talks about it, he said everything was offered. The Israelis gave everything up for peace, because it's great if you conquer land when you're attacked and you win. They still could. They had a good token to give back. They just don't want the land. They want it all. They don't want Jews there. They prefer that Jews. That's it. That's the reality.
Right, and
except a few.
I agree, and I think the history is very telling. You know, this is not about land. This is about religion, and the history. Yeah. The history shows that when there was no Zionist movement, what was their excuse back then? So again, the Arab conquests in the 7th century, dhimmi status under the Ottoman Empire, all the way to the Hebron massacre and the rejection of the partition plan. And
individual killings, there are more stories.
Several riots and massacres, and also during the Ottoman Empire there were several massacres, like I mentioned, and you know, Jews were completely defenseless. They just, if an Arab leader was having a bad day, or an Arab group, they would just have to accept the massacre and hope it doesn't happen again. That's how they lived.
What I'd like to say in addition to this is we had two ways of Zionism in a way, right? For 2,000 years at least, after being expelled, Jews are praying next year in Jerusalem. Next year in Jerusalem, the desire to go back to the homeland has been in the Jewish religion always present.
It's true.
In addition to that, in the Quran, Jerusalem is never mentioned. And so you have then the more political national movement of Zionism that is born as a result of anti-Semitism in the process in France, right? With by Theodor Herzl, who attended the process against Dreyfus, in the Dreyfus affair. And anti-Semitism in Europe and all over the world was always for 2,000 years. So we can talk about it another time why, maybe. But Zionism is born out of the impossibility that Jews, like in Arabic countries, didn't have the best life and were always second-class citizens with less rights, more to pay. Sounds like really an apartheid state, right? Let alone that in 1948, plus minus 850,000 Jews were expelled from all those Arabic countries. So people are so selective listening to all those stories.
Right, to fit their narrative.
Why is the narrative so one-sided? And that brings us back also to anti-Semitism. If you don't want to hear both stories and both sides with an open heart and open mind,
right,
there is a problem. You have a problem.
And I am so open to admitting, you know, if Israel is wrong. I am constantly searching for justifications for some of these buzzwords and some of these claims, and I just cannot find them. No one has evidence suggesting that Israel is committing genocide. Now, people will take isolated incidents, right? Maybe you have a bad IDF soldier who does something bad, and it happens in every war. But what you need to look at is the overall data. And the overall data, going back to the numbers, this war the numbers, the population decrease in this war does not line up with actual genocides. And that's the simple facts. I mean, we can get emotional watching videos on TikTok, saying isolated incidents, but the bottom line is that these numbers align with war, not genocide.
Yeah, exactly. People that know more about it than I do, certain colonels, I think Colonel Kemp is one, they have like a high admiration for the IDF because nobody else in history has fought in war with all those tunnels.
Yeah, it's
all those tunnels. I mean, how hard is it to do that on a little piece of land? But I would like to add too, I don't know if you know about that, but like the Palestinians that live in Gaza, most of their last names are Egyptian. They mostly came from Egypt. Right. Most of the last names of the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria and the West Bank have Jordanian last names. So they are not originally from that area. They came during the British Mandate because they were looking for work, which is okay. I mean, we have many Muslims in Europe and in America, they also look for work. So that's okay. But Jews also have the right to go to a place to work, to live in peace, in one very little, small, tiny land.
Tiny piece of land.
While Muslims, or there's Arabic land, I think 54 states where Arabs could go and live.
Right, and still 20% of the Israel's population is Arab. Show me
2 million.
Show me a country with a Muslim government where 20% of the population is Jews. And actually, the Arab population is increasing faster in Israel than the Jewish population.
Yeah,
which is really, really interesting.
Maybe you would like to go a little bit about the amazing project that is born in your hands. Let me introduce a little bit because I find it so miraculous with you that you met openly. I didn't know much. I go to study, and you go so deeply to study that you established a movement, and it's called the Jewish Warrior.
Yes, the Jewish Warrior Project, yes.
So tell a little bit more about that.
So, as I've been educating myself, I've become increasingly more passionate, and like I said, I feel I have an obligation, and this is my mission. My grandfather on my mother's side was in the army, and he literally opened up concentration camps and freed Jews. And then my grandfather on my father's side, he joined the resistance after escaping a camp, and he was an engineer, so he was able to make bombs and blow up Nazis in the mountains. And he was very successful with that, and he was a war hero.
Are you also going to teach making bombs in the Jewish Warrior projects?
Maybe we should stay clear from that. But so I felt inspired to, with the rise of anti-Semitism. I see a post from a Jewish person on Instagram that's not even related to Israel, and you'll see comments like Hitler should have finished the job, etc., etc. And it made me realize that anti-Semitism on the rise, and I want to help ensure that never again is a promise fulfilled. So I'm in the beginning phases right now. We're really just trying to educate people, share data, present the information in kind of a different way that's maybe easier to digest, while also empowering Jews and allies of the Jewish people who are against anti-Semitism to be more armed with knowledge and information, so that as they're going through life, engaging on social media, etc., they have the tools and the information that they need to be able to debate intelligently. Yeah.
I think that's so important, because we are such a small group, right? 0.2% of the world population.
Yeah.
And
tiny.
I have this horrible thought that Hitler could accomplish all he did with moderate propaganda, and today the same lies and the blood libels and more are so extensively spread everywhere. So many young people have no clue but an opinion, and are aggressive to us, are saying horrible things. I mean, even in the Netherlands, I'm there, and I hear that from one architecture academy, the Rietveld Academy. They have a doormat, and it says, if you're a Zionist, you're not allowed to come in, or forbidden for Zionists. And then the stupidity saying, oh, if you're a Zionist, that's different than Jewish. No, Zionism is nothing else. We said it already, right? The right of Jews to have an own place.
Right.
And where else can you go to where you were expelled from? And you can see that Israel, as small as it is, still having 2 million Arabs that live there are still living there.
Yes.
So what's the problem? What's the problem?
Yes. And it's really interesting you bring that up, how people try to separate Judaism from Israel. And you mentioned how all these Jews from Muslim countries were exiled. And these were Jews that were not settling in Israel. These were people that were massacred, had all their belongings taken from them, were exiled from countries like Morocco, Yemen, etc., just for the simple fact of being Jewish.
Yeah.
They were kicked out of their land, and they had no choice but to go to Israel.
Yeah.
So this myth about everyone in Israel being European is completely false.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a total lie. And if you look at the genetics, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and Mizrahi Jews all share similar genetics that trace back to the Middle East.
Oh yeah. So you go in and even the Ancestry.com doesn't go that far. It doesn't go back 2,000 years. So it's so interesting. You go to another country because they kick you out, and then they say, no, you're not Jewish. No, you're not Jewish.
Right.
And there's something else too, because rape, unfortunately, is a phenomenon that happened a lot. It still happens lately too. Unfortunately, it happened in the past too. So there is blood of people that were in the surrounding living too, that they rape Jewish girls. And in the Jewish law, if a girl is raped, we take the baby in, and it is Jewish, so we raise it as a Jew, and it's part of us. So yes, one of my dear friends is like 99% Ashkenazi. She's super blonde. Her family comes from not Ukraine, but where is it? Lithuania. Yeah. And yeah, her family lived there for centuries, and they're all very Jewish. Some look Jewish, some not at all. Look all the same. So over time, Ashkenazis can go back very long too, but people just don't want to know. It's like we don't want to know the truth. We want to override it with another story. It's like it's just so anti-Semitic in all layers.
It really is. So it's important to mention that Judaism is one of the only religions that I know of that doesn't allow you to try and convert other people, which I always really respected about Judaism, because
not invasive.
Yeah, it reduces the risk of hurting others to try to get them to shift to your religion. And that's something that I always really valued about Judaism, and I think it's one of the reasons why we're such a small population. There's only about 15 million Jews on earth. There's about 1.8 billion Muslims. There's about 2.2 billion Christians. We're a tiny population. And I think one of the reasons for that is that we don't try and force other people to convert.
No. It's respectful, and that's also not appreciated, because they say you're inclusive. You're how is that? You're not inclusive.
Yeah, you're not.
It's
inclusive.
never good. It's just never good.
You're not inclusive.
Yeah.
but it's just false. There's just the religion needs to see that people are really committed to being Judaism, and they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I respect that a lot.
And then we are maybe first an ethnic group, because that's a Jewish people, right? It's a people group. Like you have the Native Americans, you have the Jews, and you have other ethnic groups. It's not the religion only at all, because there are many Jews that are not connected to the religion anymore. But the ethnicity is there, and you see that even with Hitler, even when you were quite Jewish, they know to find you.
Yeah.
So the ethnicity is there, cultural there. You have the cultural heritage. You have so much, and what's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's a lot of misinformation and just a lot of hatred for Jewish people and rumors. I don't want to get too much into some of the anti-Semitic rhetoric about how the Jews control the government.
I wish we did.
I wish we did. I don't control anyone. I promise. Most Jews are middle class. And it just kind of feeds on itself.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm seeing a slippery slope. So I'm taking a dual approach to the Jewish Warrior Project. On one hand, there's empowering people through education, knowledge, information, and having healthy dialogue and debate with the other side. The other portion of the Jewish Warrior Project is preparedness. So helping Jews learn self-defense, learn how to use a gun, learn how to coordinate with their neighbors, setting up escape routes. And it seems that's going to be a later phase of the Jewish Warrior Project, and it may seem a little bit like a doomsday prep, but the Holocaust wasn't so long ago, and October 7 wasn't so long ago. And like I said...
And the hate today is immense. You have no clue how many death threats I have gotten on social media by just saying something different than they were saying, coming with another fact. And yeah, I unfortunately, I come from the Netherlands, and then the carrying guns is like a no-no unless you live in a certain place. If more Jews would have had their guns in the Holocaust, more Jews would have been saved.
It's true.
Unfortunately, that's the case. But I think it's not that I'm now saying, okay, let's everybody start to get a gun, right? But we have to think about it, how to defend ourselves, and to have that comes also from inside. If you're afraid, many Jews are afraid again and close down, go in their homes.
A lot of Jews are hiding their Magen David. I have my friend in New York on the subway, and he's scared. He's scared to wear
So
it.
if you're really scared, that is something you send out. It makes you easier a victim. So the mindset is important. That's what I like so much also in the Jewish Warrior, to create a mindset of strength, being okay with who you are, or even better, being happy you are Jewish, being proud to be Jewish, being not afraid to say who you are.
Not afraid to say you are.
And you don't want to be murdered either.
Different kinds of warriors. You don't need to be out there on the front lines, and we don't expect to ever have to go into battle, but it's good to be prepared. And, we emphasize never aggressors, just preparedness. And I also want to emphasize that this isn't only for Jews. This isn't solely for Jews. Anyone who stands against anti-Semitism can join our group, and whether you want to be an educator,
that is nice.
Yeah, whether you want to be an educator or a physical warrior, you're still a warrior. And I think education is so important. Arming yourself with knowledge. Sometimes I question whether my efforts are obsolete, because so many people have made up their minds. So many people have already made a decision. But there are people who are on the fence. Yeah. There are people who are on the fence, and those are the people that we want to reach. And then additionally, I don't want there to ever be another situation where Jews are defenseless.
No.
And that's what I'm trying to encourage. And like I said, that's going to be a later phase. Right now we're focused on education, activism, things of that nature. And then eventually, as we bring in some former IDF, coordinate with police officers, local synagogues, local churches, that's when we're gonna roll out this curriculum. And I have a very extensive curriculum.
Yeah, prepared. I've seen a part of it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very extensive.
It's smart, and it is giving a good feeling, and it is important that it will grow, gets out there. People can follow you on Instagram. That we put the links down.
Thank you.
In the description, of course, and in social media, we put all your links there.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to share about the Jewish Warrior?
Yeah, just one of our slogans is the Jewish people are known as the people of the book. Mm-hmm. I want us to also be known as a people that you don't mess with. Open season on Jews is over. We will never initiate violence. We will do whatever we can to avoid violence. We want to keep our allies close. Like I said, it's open to other religious groups. But we need to shift the perspective of these are a bunch of nerds and people of the book to these are people that you do not mess with. Mm-hmm. And that is the shift in perspective that I'm trying to inspire. So that's the Jewish Warrior Project at its core. And I plan on doing public interviews, debates, etc.
Yeah.
And really working hard on this. And for me, this is a big step, because like I said, I didn't feel connected to Judaism. I never thought in a million years I would be doing something like this. But just learning about the history and understanding how few Jews there are on earth, and understanding what my family went through. We lost most of our family in the Holocaust. We lost all of our belongings in Romania. It's like, how can I not step up and do whatever I can with the gifts that God blessed me with? I have an obligation. And
I agree with you. And it's very beautiful. Yeah. So now, after this, we end always with the anti-Semite of the week and the hero. So I give you first a chance. You had a hard time not finding anti-Semite. You had a hard time choosing which one because there are so many.
So many options.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go with an anti-Semite who's been in the news recently, and his name is Sheikh Abdulghani Alba. Okay, I got the name right. And he is the principal of New Medina University in New Wales, Australia. And he posted on social media saying that Zionists should burn in the pit fires of hell.
Great.
And this is a principal of a university, and I think it's very telling about how some of these professors and principals are conducting themselves. It's a strong statement.
As so many. And how can we ever do something with people? How can we ever live with people that are so hateful, that so easily say that? I am disgusted and terrified and you name it of Hamas, but I'm still not saying I hope this, I hope that, I hope they will be roasted alive. I don't want them. I want them to be really wiped out because we don't want those people that only want to kill us. If you cannot brainwash them into a better person again. But to just, I don't understand that. And in the Western world is why, because the Western world try to liberate itself, elevate themselves, going to becoming a nicer society. Being good to everybody, not like back to the Middle Ages. This is like back to the Middle Ages.
Yeah. And when someone says something like that, I'm a Zionist, my parents are Zionists, and my living grandparent is a Zionist and a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
So he's saying that my 94-year-old grandma should burn in the pit fires of hell. She's never hurt anyone, she's never killed anyone, and she never will. So it's really horrible comments.
This whole aggression leads to that a lot of Jews are afraid to say publicly that they're Zionists.
Yes.
Because they will be persecuted, they will be cancelled, they will be attacked,
And
they might lose their
concern.
jobs. There are already less students that are Israeli or that are Jewish that are accepted in colleges in America. The quota is already going down as well. Yeah. It's all visible because people have places in different locations. That's a topic for another time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, which is really why we need something like the Jewish Warrior Project to empower people. I mean, people are scared. I'm well trained in martial arts. I like to go shooting. I feel pretty comfortable, like I can defend myself. But there's a lot of Jews who don't feel that way, who are hiding their Judaism and their roots in America. In Australia.
In Europe.
In the UK. I mean, it's spreading like crazy. And we need to stay close with our allies, those who stand against anti-Semitism, and be well coordinated, well prepared with knowledge and also physical preparedness. So yeah, that was not a shocking social media post to see, but it still is surprising because this is happening in a place like Australia.
And it's allowed, and he's not fired yet.
He is facing some scrutiny. Australia has a law against hate speech that's a little stricter than America's. But just the fact that he feels comfortable saying something like that is unbelievable. And like I said, I pair Zionism with Judaism because half of the Jews on earth live in Israel, and all of these Jews that were exiled from these Arab countries having no direct involvement in the Zionist movement also live in Israel. Are they supposed to go back to Yemen where they will be slaughtered? Of course not. So what are they supposed to do? You want to send the Yemenite Jews to Europe as well?
It would be funny in Poland where they don't want them either.
Should my family go? Should we go commit terrorist attacks against the Romanian government because they kicked us out?
No.
Of course not.
People never put us in that table. Yeah.
It's never even a thought that goes through our head because we move on, right? We move on, and we're a people who believe in progress and forward motion and success, and we're not so focused on revenge and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating.
And sad. It's just very sad. My anti-Semite of the week is actually a group of people. I cannot name them, but they're responsible for responses and reactions that I saw online after the fires and during the fires in California. There were people that said, well, that's what Allah or God is punishing for Gaza. I mean, I never heard that in the same token for, that's the punishment for taking the hostages and killing 1,200 people in their sleep, more or less. It happened October 7th. So the whole thing is already disgusting. And then there were people that say, it must have been must have been lighted up must have been set to fire by Jews because it cannot go up by itself. Horrible responses and insinuations. And also there were fires. Now there's proof there's arson, right? Some people are caught, thank God. And so arson is a fact. That is part of the problem. And that must also be Jews because
they blame everything.
It's just too sick that you dare to do that. And also those people that set fire, that other people, innocent people can die, burn alive, it's about the animals, horrific. How can you do that? In a country where there is freedom, why would you be such a person? I don't get that.
These are people who danced when 9/11 happened and rejoiced, so it's
the same kind of,
it's nothing new, but if God is punishing anyone, it seems like he's punishing Hamas. I mean, they've shot a ton of missiles into Israel,
but they never,
Yemen, the Houthis, Hezbollah, but they haven't really done any significant.
Well, let's keep it that way because it's so horrible if you see all the missiles that are sent every day. That's also something that you don't see much about in the news. No. So a lot of people don't even know that it has happened on a daily basis.
I like to use the analogy of if someone broke into my house with a knife and I had my family there.
Yeah, please come in.
Right, and I had a gun.
Yeah.
Okay, and I shot this person to save my family.
Yeah.
Would I be wrong because I brought a gun to a knife fight? Of course not. I'm defending my family. So it's not really about the capabilities or who has a stronger military. It's about the intent and who started it, like I mentioned in the beginning. So, these people, and that's the thing, a lot of these kind of super left-wing communist supporters, Marxists, they just stand against everything that the West represents, and they're always going to root for the little guy, and they see Palestine as being the little guy. And it's funny, this one person, I forgot his name, he compared the Jewish and Palestinian conflict to David and Goliath. And he said the Jews are like
we're now
Goliath and that the Palestinians are like David. But this is actually not an accurate comparison or analogy, because David had more advanced weaponry than Goliath.
Yeah.
And there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called David and Goliath, where they talk about seemingly disadvantageous situations can actually be advantageous. And David had a long-range weapon.
Yeah.
And Goliath never stood a chance.
Yeah.
And so when you're making that comparison, really Israel is more like David and Palestine is more like Goliath because they're also the aggressors. So,
and they throw the stones also.
That's a David thing.
Yeah.
I think this, but it is interesting when you think about it that way. I mean, there's a lot of comparisons that we can draw here. So
I actually would like to go now to our hero of the week, and I usually give that to the guest first, because my hero story is mixed. And I want to really end on a more positive note, but you, Prem.
Sure.
So my hero of the week is, unfortunately, Adir Tahar. That is the Israeli guy that whose remains are not found yet last week, but they probably could prove who he was. They found in Gaza in one freezer a head, and the head is from Adir. he was beheaded, and they have tried to sell his head for $10,000 a while ago. Nobody seemingly bought it, but it is still there. Now, then online comes right away the response, and that's the negative part of it. Oh, that cannot be true, that cannot be true. We all know that beheading is a tactic that certain Muslims use, specifically the ones that are very fanatic, right? That is a punishment. But when it comes to Jews of Israelis, it's suddenly not true. Unfortunately or fortunately, they made a video about it, that they saw the head, and they said that they offered, that video is circulating. It's horrible to see that, and it is horrific for the family, and the father has been I find that amazing. He has been speaking about it. But this guy was there alone, tortured and then beheaded, and he was doing nothing wrong, only serving his country and protecting the freedom of others. So he is really my hero in the memory. May his memory be a blessing, and may his soul find peace.
Amen. Yeah, it's incredible, and the sad thing is that people justify these acts and say it's resistance. And you know, as a Jewish person, it really, it's crushing to see the ignorance out there and how people really hate us and they really want to destroy us. And I can tell you, in my life, all I've ever done is be kind to everyone: Muslims, Christians, Jews. My family doesn't control anything. My family went through terrible atrocities, where most of my family was wiped out. And people are just wrong about this Israel-Palestine conflict. I did the research, and no country is perfect. But there's no justification for this kind of selective outrage.
Yeah.
And hearing stories like this about this hero, it's the one of the saddest things about it is the reaction.
Yeah.
People don't condemn it.
It's like 7 October, first trauma, 8 October, second trauma.
Yeah.
How the world responded.
It's unbelievable. And the world is changing. I have a friend, she's not Jewish. She's agnostic, and she posted something about Hanukkah on her Instagram. And one of her Instagram followers messaged her and said, "Oh, you're a Zionist, baby killer, blah, blah, blah." And she didn't even post about Israel. She posted about a Jewish holiday.
No, the baby killer is a super big joke. And it's not a joke, of course, but how that is used. I like the IDF knocks at the door. Are the babies here? Oh, they're in that room. Oh, pong. I mean, as if that is going on. Not at all. It is just the other way around, that in the hospitals and the schools.
Right.
You know what the IDF does? We are a bit on the side here, but that doesn't matter. The IDF does, they go into the homes for the booby traps and to find entrances to the tunnels. The entrances to the tunnels and the booby traps are always in the bedrooms of the children.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who does that in their right mind? Who uses children?
Well, it's part of their strategy. I mean, this is their strategy.
Who uses children, the precious lives of children, to just let them become martyrs and brainwash people that it's a great thing to have that happen to your family, your kids, and you sacrifice your babies, your kids, and then the other people get mad at the baby killers. Who are the real baby killers? Hamas.
Yeah, it goes back to Israel's military capabilities. If they wanted to wipe out Gaza, they could do it in a day. The population wouldn't have increased by over 300% since 1948, and the Arab population wouldn't be growing faster than the Jewish population in Israel.
Yeah.
So it's just total lies.
Yeah. Let's go to the nice hero you have.
Okay, we'll keep it positive.
Yeah.
So yeah, speaking about brainwashing and indoctrination, my hero of the week is a gentleman, I may not pronounce his name correctly, Luoy Al-Sharif.
Yeah.
And he has an incredible story. So he grew up in Saudi Arabia, and from a young age, he was indoctrinated to hate Jews and Christians. And it wasn't until he started studying in Paris, where he stayed with a Jewish family, learned about the culture, learned about the religion, and started to change his mindset. Now, it's important to mention that Saudi Arabia is much more secular now and less extreme than it was back then in the 80s when he was growing up. But he really shifted his perspective, and he's still a Muslim to this day. But he's a huge advocate of the Abraham Accords. He's a social media influencer. emphasizing Jews' right to the land,
Yeah.
and also that Jews are not the aggressors and Jews are not committing genocide. And this is an incredible Muslim ally. And when I see a Muslim kind of emerge from that brainwashing, and not all Muslims grow up like that, of course, but specifically in Saudi Arabia during the 80s, this is how they were taught. When I see someone overcome that brainwashing, like the son of Hamas as well, Mossab, it's really admirable. And I really think it takes a special kind of person with incredible strength and an incredible amount of introspection to be able to change their mindset.
Yeah, fantastic, absolutely.
That's why Louay Al-Sharif is my hero of the week, and I'm so grateful for him and all the Muslims who support us.
Yeah, well, there are definitely also who do that, and that's the same thing we're grateful for too.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you so very much. We couldn't stop talking about it.
I know.
There's so much to say. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for watching. And if you like the videos that we post, please consider to subscribe and to us channel, like, and leave a comment. That helps us to, and we have many more great interviews coming up. So many interesting people to interview. And thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye for now. Bye bye.
And thank you, Carla, for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Take care.
Super.
Bye bye.